All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Nicholas Martinelli. I am the program manager for the Entrepreneurial Bootcamp for veterans here at the Connecticut Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. I served the United States Army for 23 years, and upon retirement, came and joined the CCEI team and was afforded the opportunity to be associated with this program. And I can't speak highly enough in regards to how much this program means to me and how privileged I am to be able to afford the opportunities to as many veterans as I can to take part in it. Today, we are going to talk with a veteran and honoring Veterans Day. Today is with us is Jonathan Norton. He is an EBV grad, Army Ranger, and the founder of RopeSafe USA. John is a combat veteran and Army Ranger. He's the founder of RopeSafe USA and the developer of a CE certified edge protector and anchor strap designed to protect military and first responders during rope rescue operations. He holds 2 patents and was awarded a USAF Small Business Innovation Research Phase 2 contract to develop a variation of the product specific to USAF Special Operation Units. Following delivery to the USAF customer, Jonathan joined the Zero Eyes Inc. and currently leads their commercial sales team. He earned a BA from UConn and is married with 3 children and lives with his family here in Connecticut. Well, thank you, Jonathan, for joining us. And it's a pleasure and a privilege to have you on, and we look forward to discussing some topics with you as we get through this timely topics.
Yeah, likewise, Nicholas. Thank you for having me.
Excuse me. So as we get into this, can you tell us how the program EBV helped play a role in your transition from the military to civilian life?
Sure, no problem. Just to frame it up in a little bit of a different way, because when I started the EBV program, I was already 7 years transitioned had separated from active duty and 3 years from the National Guard. But I think what the more interesting is to share how the EBV program helped me transition into a role of running my own business into entrepreneurship. And just for a little bit of story, how the product came about, I had developed what you might hear as minimum viable product, basically a simple way of an ugly prototype of the product, the commercial product that came to be RopeSafe. And I had some early customer feedback from some U.S. Army Special Operations units that said, and also just some friends who were climbers, that hey, this is you might be onto something here. It's ugly, but this may actually be a functional tool that we can use. So, and at that time, I was fortunate enough to have filed for or obtain services from the UConn Law IP clinic to filed a provisional patent. So I had some degree of protection. And I reached out to, at that time was the program manager, Mike Sakea, God rest his soul. And I pitched the idea of like, hey, Mike, John Norton here, served in the Army, whatever. And I gave him just a high level overview of what my product is and was, the concept, if you will. And he started asking me questions. Hey, John, what's your go-to-market strategy? What's your cost of goods sold? What's your break-even point? Your competitive differentiation? What separates you from everything else that's on the market? And all of which I didn't have a good answer for. And so I realized I didn't know, quite frankly. And so basically, I knew at that time that I needed some degree of entrepreneurial education, and Mike, in his very direct way, said, "You need to join the EBV. You need to come to and be a part of the EBV program." So at that time, I was working still full time, and took some vacation, and literally kind of just utterly fascinated with the program. I threw myself into so I could get the most out of my experience with EBV, and I certainly did. And what I can share, to answer your question specifically, Nick, is basically the EBV program gave me the foundational skills in order to effectively run, the small business, and not only just the skills, but it also developed a network of pretty incredible people that or supported me along my journey.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of times when we talk to folks that are interested in coming into the program, they all have specific needs and different areas of background in regards to business operations and such. So it's really great because the program kind of gives a wide variety of information and a big overscope of a bunch of different resources that are available to all of these folks during and after the fact. Can you think of any specific portions of the EBV that really resonated with you while you were going through the program?
Yeah, sure. For me, being as though I'm a product-oriented company, and so the specific portion that really helped me out was a gentleman by the name of Wayne Bragg. I don't know if he's still part of the program, but
Yes,
uh,
yes.
I know he's an instructor at EBV, brilliant man, former CFO, if I recall, of Sikorsky Aircraft, and so Wayne, oh yeah, I echo the love for Wayne Bragg, and so he basically not only worked, gave me a high level, blew my mind with kind of his analysis, his break even analysis, and how to calculate your cost of goods sold, what your contribution margin is, what your contribution margins should be for a direct sales organization that I was at a time, and for if those who are interested in going into a going to market with distributors, how to properly price your product. And I think the key takeaway that is charge more money. But Wayne worked very closely with me during the EBV and after the EBV to help develop all of my financial portfolio, my cost of goods analysis, my profit and loss statements, my balance sheets, things that were, to me, just, sort of like learning Mandarin, but he made it very, very simple for me and walked me through it. So that's one thing that pointed out, but I will say that there are many others that I have not mentioned that were, that comprise the network that I, still with today, like Scott Longley. Scott Longley introduced me to a manufacturer up in Massachusetts, one of my earlier manufacturers for RopeSafe. He ultimately became a board member of mine. Ted Lockowitz, who, Ted is, was part of the EBV Foundation. So that kind of, he built a structure in a way. So I, was fortunate enough to win the business plan competition at the end of the 12 months post EBV mentorship program. And there's so many others I'm leaving out that were instrumental in in my kind of progression through EBV and then after.
Sure. And as you know, at the culmination of the phase 2 residency portion of EBV, you get the post-program support from the IVMF. And I'm curious to know if the post-program support, how beneficial it was to you and your business to have all of those additional resources available to you. And do you have any in particular that you would encourage EBV grads that have not yet chased after those post-program supports? Would you recommend any of them to them?
Yeah, absolutely. The one that comes to mind is certainly the IVMF, the EBV Foundation, offering the business plan competition. I mean, even if I know it's a very competitive program, and even if you don't win, it forces you to sit down and, just like in the military, you don't just go out and run a combat operation without a plan. It's very similar. It's not wise to start and run a business without some degree of a business plan. So that resource was a forcing function for me to sit down and write a business plan to answer all those questions that Mike asked me on the onset. What is your go-to-market strategy? What is your competitive differentiation? And that, and for those that are throw themselves into it, there is some financial incentive at the end. And for me, that gave me the financial resources to then reinvest into the business. Others that come to mind are the Veteran Edge, the Veteran Edge conference in Dallas. I attended that for multiple years, and that is an incredible networking program that you get to be a part of and meet other like-minded veteran entrepreneurs that are with varying degrees of businesses. And there's also an incubator program that you put on. You can apply for being a part of the incubator. I think Larry Broughton used to run it. Former Green Beret. He's a hotelier and executive coach. Really, really awesome guy. So I was fortunate to get accepted into that program, and there were, they awarded, they're awarded some and non-dilutive capital investment. They give cash to those who attended. So any dollar helps, especially when you're growing a business. The other tool, which is a bit outside of the IVMF, but still a resource for veteran entrepreneurs, is the Hofstra Veterans Venture Challenge. And again, this is run by Kevin Hisselberg, who's a CEO and investor for our former CEO, investor, and a founder of the Hofstra Veterans Venture Challenge. And like the EBV, brings together brilliant minds from finance, from startup capital investments, marketing, subject matter experts that can really help you, help an EBV grad or even just a veteran entrepreneur, navigate the challenges of bringing a business to life. But and there's a ton of other resources. I mean, I can go through a whole laundry list, but I mean, right on the IVMF website, they're there, whether it's from free LinkedIn premium services to, cost and website, investing. The EBV with, provide some, a website developer that I capitalized on. There's just a ton of resources that if you dig in can really help, because any dollar that you can save that you don't have to, go into, in debt, equity, or financing. There's a lot of resources there.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I echo the sentiments in regards to the Veteran Edge. I attended it last year and it was amazing. I mean, the amount of education and networking that's available to you while you're down there and other programs that they offer while you're there is definitely spectacular. And I encourage all veterans who have come through EBV to attend that conference if possible, and just to experience like what else they have down there, and just to be able to chit chat with everybody who's, some are at the same stage of business, some are, much further along, that they can pick their brains and get more information on. I think another good question would be, as you were coming into EBV, I think, what did you what was the most surprising part of it for when you were launching your business? Was there a part of your business that you hadn't even really thought about, and then as you came to EBV, you realized like this was something I never even considered to think about, and EBV kind of brought that to light for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the big one is what surprised me. There's a couple things that surprised me. One, just the amount of support that and resources that are available to veteran entrepreneurs, and that was very, very eye-opening for me. But I was also, there was just the amount of thought that went into the program. So for those who have attended or those who are considering attending, there's a 30-day preparation phase called preparation execution phase, where you get I dug into that. I knew the one of the books that stood out to my mind is the New Business Road Test, and just really challenging you to think very, very deeply about your business, about your product or service that you provide. And that for me really opened up my eyes that, wow, okay, this is to start, to building a business, or not just selling a product, or building a business around a product that you've sold, or are seeking to sell. So that was eye-opening. And then the execution of the EBV, being, that's where, that it was just a surprise to me about how supportive the UConn organization is, and just the high quality and caliber of people that are brought to the program. Wayne Bragg, I mentioned one, but there's so many other people that have expertise in bank financing, patents, marketing. So to hear from subject matter experts who know their stuff, and to be able to draw on that knowledge was incredibly surprising to me, Nick. And those individuals aren't just there during EBV. They're all extremely generous with their time, and I know that there's if I emailed Wayne today, that I'd get a response within moments, or I can pick up the phone and call Scott Longley, or reach out to any one of those whom were teaching during that program. I can reach out to. So that network became an incredibly valuable asset for me, one that I just was not fully expecting.
Sure. So can you think of any other veteran-specific resources that you utilize as an entrepreneur outside of what was provided during the EBV that helped you after the fact and grow your business?
Sure. I think in the Yukon, whether there's veterans or even entrepreneurs, you don't have to be a veteran. In the state of Connecticut, there's the Yukon Law IP Clinic. If you have a budding idea that you want to road test in the market, I heighten, and yet you don't want to invest a lot of money because maybe it could be a flop. And so the Yukon Law IP Clinic offers intellectual property services to aspiring entrepreneurs who can then go and seek to have a student work on their a patent application or a trademark application with the oversight of really, really brilliant attorneys, to minimize your capital outlay and be able to protect provide some degree of intellectual property protection for your product. And the School of Engineering, the Yukon School of Engineering, again, really, really grateful. They opened up their labs for me to do laboratory testing for my product, which for me was a necessary part to accessing some of the markets that I tapped into. That's a few. There's for those who are seeking to raise non-dilutive capital, which is extremely competitive, but there's the Bob Evans Heroes to CEOs program that if you're that you can win non-dilutive capital investments to reinvest into your business. That's one that comes to mind. I mentioned the Hofstra Veterans Venture Challenge already. Those are, and I think the last thing is that if there's anybody that has a product that they think might be relevant to the Department of Defense, that, hey, for my product, for example, it's a commercial edge protection that's used by firefighters and rope access professionals. Well, that product had product market fit within specific segments of the Department of Defense. So the Small Business Innovation Research Program, specifically the Air Force. The Air Force has a pretty well run SBIR program, and there's this topic called Open Innovation Topics. We can spend a whole nother webinar or two on this, but if it's something that you feel strongly and have that you might have product market fit with the Department of Defense, then the SBIR program is a great way to provide non-dilutive capital, one that I was able to take advantage of for both a phase 1 and a phase 2. For those that don't know what that is, phase 1 is a customer discovery that the DoD pays you to do customer discovery within, whether it be, I say the DoD, but a specific Department of Defense, the Air Force or Army will pay you to go and find customers. And then a phase 2 is a kind of a development contract that you can use to take your commercially available product and iterate that, make some modifications to it, maybe undergo lab testing, so that it is a good fit for the specific customer within the DoD. So those are incredible resources. It's extremely competitive program, but one that can be certainly incredibly beneficial to help access the Department of Defense markets.
Sure. I think the last question I would have for you is kind of going back a little bit. I'm trying to phrase this correctly. So I guess in other words, were you surprised at how much you had to pivot or change plans as you were going through your business plan, as you were growing the business in the beginning? Like, I mean, was it easy to learn to adapt, like to pivot and realize that like that's okay to do, like that's going to happen? But I guess in other words, I'm looking, is it to be expected? Like, where are the reassurances that we're trying to provide some of these young entrepreneurs as they come through the program? Like, you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to understand that some things are not going to work out, and that's okay. and this is how you can, be prepared to shift left or right when necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly that yeah, let's be real. Entrepreneurship is a hard road. It's not easy. And certainly the traditional term of pivot. I didn't have to pivot too much, Nick, in the sense of significantly changing my product to meet a new customer market or new demand. I was fortunate in that regard that I didn't have to pivot too much. But certainly my experience, it was an iterative development process. Like I mentioned, my first prototype of RopeSafe, it was made of leather and it was just horrible. It was ugly. But when I started to do testing, and this may not be specifically answering your question, but when I started doing testing with customers, they'd give me, feedback like, hey, here's a way you can refine this and make it better. So, okay, I had to adapt that current product. And, then at that point, I had to go find a new manufacturer to develop the next iteration of my prototype. And then I'd field test that with another market and get more feedback. So I think I went through, 4 or 5 evolutions. I guess we can call them kind of adaptations of the current product, but in each one, so I think that's, in my eyes, kind of the iterative product development process that I put in place, and it was largely dependent on customer feedback. So and I think the biggest test that is somebody willing to is, do you have a viable product? Are they willing to pay for it? So I'm fortunate to have some early customers that purchased the product, and that was an indicator that, okay, I'm on to something here, that this might be a useful tool to serve the market that I'm targeting. But I don't know if that answered your question, but it wasn't like I had this great idea and then all of a sudden out popped the commercial the commercial product that I had. It was an iterative process with a lot of feedback from customers to ultimately continue to iterate to the commercial product that I have available today. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, no, that was a great answer. I think it's just really good to get for other folks that are coming through the program or have come through that, to hear the reassurance that, like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Just continue to pursue your objectives, and you're on to something, obviously, as you go through this journey. And there's going to be bumps and challenges throughout the way, but ultimately, as long as you stay the course, and you'll be successful in the end, which is ultimately what the program really does. And that's why, for me, it's a privilege to be a part of it and be able to provide the services to everybody, because I know that it is a challenge when you come from the military service into back to the private sector. There's a major difference that you have to adjust back to, just mentally coming from that background. So being able to afford this opportunity to everybody else is just, like I said, it's just great. And I'm really thankful that we were able to have you come on and discuss, all of the different areas that you've, exposed yourself to and been a part of. And that's I think it's really, really great. At this point, if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to take them now. Let's see if anybody has anything they'd like to ask you.
I was just wondering, what do you think personally the most enjoyable part of the whole entrepreneurial journey has been for you, since the beginning?
Question. The most enjoyable. Well, so I think just the autonomy that entrepreneurship does provide. Now, I've heard the expression that you'll trade, entrepreneurship is trading, a W-2 40-hour a week of employment for, 120 hours, all in. And why would somebody want to do that? But there is, for me, the most enjoyable part was, after kind of field testing with customers and getting that feedback, like, hey man, you're onto something here. This might be really, really good. To that, that just gets me excited now. Like, wow, I'm able to produce something that has some value for the customers that I serve, and that's an incredible feeling. Now, those are fleeting moments, I will say, because then the real work, grit comes in to persevere, because it really is. It's like walking through the mud uphill. And you can have a whole nother podcast on all that, on the challenges associated with it. But the knowing that you're building something of value for your particular customers is incredibly rewarding. So yeah, if that's a good question, Roy. I don't know if that answers it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, great.
All right, well,
So,
I would like to,
Nick?
yes.
Sorry, I don't have a question, but I just have a comment, if you don't mind. I just wanted to, I obviously, I worked on the program when John came through, and I just want to thank you. I want to echo Nick's statement. I knew you'd be a fantastic guest for this, and I appreciate your kind words about the program and just sharing your experience with us today, John. Thank you.
No, likewise, Megan, and the glue that holds the program together. Thank you for what you do in communicating and keeping the alumni informed. So, I'm sure I can speak on behalf of every graduate out there. We incredibly value your contribution and what you do for the veteran entrepreneurial community.
Well,
Thank you.
I want to thank you, John, for being here with us today. And I want to thank Michaela Hartle for allowing us to hijack her timely topics this week, so we can showcase some of the veterans that have come through in our program. And this is a great program in itself. So I appreciate everything. I appreciate everybody who signed in our audience today and listening. Before we close today's session, I wanted to let everybody know that our next timely topics will be another veteran is coming on to discuss the tactics in a modern civilian world. His name is Will Farmer, and that is set for November 28th from 12:30 to 1. We look forward to having everybody there as well. Again, thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks so much.